Clint Eastwood walked onto the stage with his signature composed confidence. The applause roared across the vast auditorium, but he barely acknowledged it, just a modest nod and a faint smile. Opposite him, seated in a high-backed chair beneath the intense stage lights, was Elon Musk, the billionaire famed for his bold predictions, forward-thinking ideas, and his often blunt delivery. This wasn't merely a casual interview, it was a true exchange of ideologies, a collision between two vastly different worlds. The scene was set, cameras were live, and millions around the world tuned in to witness what was more than just a conversation. Musk leaned forward slightly, his posture relaxed, but his face marked with a smug expression, fingertips tapping idly on the chair's armrest. "Clint," he began with a sly grin, "I'll admit I didn't expect you to agree to this. AI is the future. Hollywood? That's just living in the past." His tone carried a hint of mockery, and the audience gave a knowing chuckle, sensing the bait. But Clint didn't bite. Adjusting his jacket with calm precision, his demeanor remained unchanged. "You know, Elon," he said evenly, "nostalgia reminds us of what it means to be human. Can artificial intelligence do that?" The audience murmured in response. For a brief moment, Musk's confident smile wavered, but he quickly shrugged it off with a dismissive wave. "Come on," he scoffed. "You can dress it up however you like, but the truth is AI can already write scripts, generate realistic characters, even compose music. In a few short years, Hollywood won't need actors anymore. Machines don't need rest. They don't argue, and they don't age. Clint, you're what? Over 90 now? Honestly, do you think people will still choose you over a flawless, digitally perfected star?" A few gasps were heard. It was a pointed jab. Classic Musk. Blunt, unfiltered, and aiming for control. The camera zoomed in on Clint, searching for a crack in the calm. But instead of faltering, Clint simply smiled. A subtle, knowing smile, as if he'd seen this all before. He leaned forward, echoing Musk's stance. "Elon," he said, his voice steady but clear. "Have you ever watched a sunset?" The room quieted instantly. Musk blinked, his brow furrowed slightly in confusion. "A sunset?" he repeated, as though unsure of its relevance. "Yes," Clint replied, still conversational. "You can snap a photo of one. AI can render one, with amazing accuracy. You can replicate the colors, even the glow. But that doesn't mean you've experienced it." The audience waited, holding their breath. Musk opened his mouth, then shut it, thrown slightly off course. Clint leaned back again, his words lingering. "There's something about truly being there, in the moment, something no AI can imitate. That's what gives meaning to art, to stories, to us. That's what makes them irreplaceable." Applause erupted. Musk's smug demeanor faded slightly, replaced with something more calculated. He wasn't finished. "Okay, Clint," he said, forcing a chuckle. "Nice metaphor. But let's deal in reality. AI isn't just copying things. It's making them better. It processes data millions of times faster. It learns, adapts, optimizes. That means the films of tomorrow won't just match today's. They'll surpass them. Perfectly engineered for audience enjoyment. You think people will care about human actors when AI delivers a flawless experience?" The audience was split, some nodding, others unsure. This wasn't just a back and forth. This was a deeper confrontation between technology's promise and human authenticity. Clint's fingers tapped lightly on the armrest. He looked from the audience back to Musk. "That's an interesting take," he said thoughtfully. "But if AI's so perfect, why do people still go to concerts when they can stream studio tracks? Why attend plays instead of watching virtual renditions? Why seek real connection when we've already got simulations?" The murmuring grew. Even Musk looked slightly unsettled. Before he could respond, Clint turned to the audience, smiling, gently. "Let me ask you all something," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "If you believe raw, human creativity, with all its imperfections, matters more than AI's engineered perfection, drop a 9 in the comments right now." The chat feed exploded. Audience members held up phones, typing furiously. The energy shifted dramatically. Musk's jaw tightened. The momentum was turning, but he wasn't done yet. Musk leaned forward, fingers gripping the edges of his chair as his tone sharpened. "You're missing the point, Clint," he said firmly. "AI isn't just about movies or music. It's about efficiency, progress, survival. Humans are slow, emotional, flawed. AI doesn't make those mistakes. And eventually, this isn't going to be about what people want. It'll be about what they need." Clint listened, his expression unreadable, then tilted his head just slightly. "Let me ask you something," Clint said without missing a beat, still holding Musk's gaze. "Do you think intelligence is measured by how well something replaces people, or by how well it supports them?" The question landed heavily, and the silence that followed was thick. Musk's fingers twitched subtly, caught by the camera, and for a moment, no words followed. Clint pressed on, his voice calm, unwavering. "The real question isn't whether AI can replace us. It's whether we should let it." Once again, the crowd roared in response. Musk said nothing, no quip, no retort, just silence. Clint turned back to the audience, nodding slightly, allowing the moment to breathe. The applause echoed around the auditorium, but Musk sat frozen, staring at Clint, visibly unsettled. His usual air of control was gone, replaced by something stiffer, less sure. The cameras caught a flicker of doubt in his eyes. What had begun as a conversation about artificial intelligence and Hollywood had evolved into something far more profound, something Musk hadn't anticipated. Clint, seated casually, looked like a man who wasn't trying to dominate the moment, but had already owned it. The silence became its own kind of response, a quiet power move. This debate wasn't about technology anymore. It was about philosophy, about what it truly means to be human. Musk shifted, letting out a sharp exhale and forcing a dry chuckle. "Okay, Clint," he said, his voice regaining some of its earlier bite. "You like metaphors. But let's look at what's really happening. Right now, AI is already writing scripts, de-aging actors, even replacing extras. The industry doesn't care about your nostalgic ideas. It cares about profit, efficiency. AI is cheaper, faster, and frankly, better." His words were blunt, final. "So tell me, what's stopping a studio from replacing you with a younger AI-generated version? You think audiences would notice or care?" The audience reacted. Some gasped, others murmured. Musk sat back, seemingly pleased with his bold challenge. This was his attempt to flip the script, to undermine Clint's presence with a single cutting truth: the inevitability of obsolescence. But Clint didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, his expression calm. Then, with a slight grin, he responded. "That's a fair question," he admitted, "but let me ask you something in return." He paused just long enough to let the tension settle. "If AI can make a better, younger version of me, why hasn't it?" The audience erupted. Musk blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. Clint leaned forward again, voice steady but piercing. "You say AI can replace actors, but studios still hire real people. You say AI can write scripts, but the most powerful stories are still written by human hands. Why is that?" He gave the crowd a beat to think before adding, "It's not perfection that makes us connect. It's the flaws. The greatest performances in history weren't great because they were flawless. They were great because they were real." The energy shifted again. People weren't just nodding anymore, they were listening deeply. Musk, meanwhile, sat visibly tense, unaccustomed to being on the defensive. And Clint, he looked completely in control. Musk leaned forward more aggressively now, his tone sharper. So you're saying AI will never be better than humans? That's absurd. Look at chess. AI crushed every grandmaster. In medicine, it diagnoses faster than most doctors. And you really believe that Hollywood, of all places, a world built on illusion, is where AI won't take over? Clint didn't respond right away. He let the words sit in the air, calm and silent, as if weighing the weight behind them. Then he turned to Musk and replied, measured and deliberate. I'm not saying AI won't change things, Clint said. I'm saying it will reveal what really matters. Musk scoffed, shaking his head. That sounds like the kind of line people use right before they become irrelevant. Clint smiled faintly and nodded. Maybe it will change everything. Maybe Hollywood will run on algorithms. Maybe actors will be replaced. Maybe creativity will fade into data streams. But let me ask you this. If AI can predict what people want so precisely, then why do people still manage to surprise each other? Fekaros, room shifted again, the air growing heavy. Musk's expression flickered. Clint leaned in, his voice steady but firm. Why do people still fall in love unexpectedly? Why do they laugh at jokes they didn't see coming? Why do they cry watching movies they already know the ending to? He paused just long enough. Because we're unpredictable, and that's something AI will never understand. Silence settled in the room. The audience held still, fixated, not just on Clint's words, but on the truth they carried. Musk sat motionless, his mouth pressed into a tight line. He had no quick answer. The cameras caught every twitch of his jaw, every slight movement of his hands as he tried to regain footing. Clint continued, unwavering. AI can simulate logic. It can mimic patterns. But it can't experience loss. It can't hold on to memories. It can't fear what's ahead or hope for what's next. It can't love. A slow clap began at the back of the room, spreading row by row until it erupted into full applause. Musk looked uncomfortable. Behind him, the AI-generated version of Clint stood frozen on the screen. Eerily perfect, but suddenly hollow. Clint gestured toward it. You can make 1,000 versions of me, he said. They might look better, sound smoother, mimic me perfectly, but they won't be me. And that's why they won't ever replace me. The applause intensified. Musk's fingers tapped against his knee, his smirk gone. Desperation flickered behind his eyes. So what's your big plan, Clint? He asked, pushing out a laugh. You going to fight AI? Pretend the world's not changing? Clint's expression shifted, calm, focused. No, he said simply. I'm going to guide it. The audience froze, caught off guard by the pivot. Even Musk's grin faltered. What are you talking about? He asked, suddenly alert. Clint leaned forward, delivering the blow without raising his voice. I haven't been avoiding AI, he said. I've been helping build it. The crowd exploded. Musk's eyes widened. The live chat went wild. Clint let the moment breathe before adding, for the past 5 years, I've been investing in AI. Not to replace humans, but to protect what makes us human. To support artists. To ensure creativity stays in our hands. Musk sat back in stunned silence. He had nothing left to say. Clint wasn't just holding his ground. He was claiming new territory. He hadn't come to resist the future. He had come to shape it. The audience was still buzzing, murmurs rippling through the auditorium. Clint Eastwood, the man Musk had tried to cast as a relic, had just revealed himself as a force moving ahead of the curve. And not only had he been involved in AI, he had been doing it for the purpose of preserving the creative spirit, not replacing it. Musk, for once, looked genuinely blindsided. His usual confidence had been replaced with something quieter, more measured. He sat stiffly, jaw clenched, as the camera zoomed in on his expression. Clint remained composed, watching him with a kind of calm that didn't need to shout to make a statement. The power had shifted completely. Musk was no longer steering the conversation. He was reacting. "So let me get this straight," Musk finally said, his voice trying to regain composure. "You, Clint Eastwood, the Hollywood icon, expect people to believe you understand AI better than the teams at Tesla or OpenAI." He turned to the crowd, half laughing. "Come on, this isn't about AI. It's about fear. You're just another actor trying to delay the inevitable." His attack was pointed, deeply personal, designed to discredit. But Clint didn't flinch. Instead, he let out a quiet breath, his voice low and steady. "You know what's funny, Elon?" he said, almost with a trace of disappointment. "I actually agree with you." Musk raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Oh, do you?" Clint nodded. "Yeah, I agree this isn't really about AI. It's about something deeper. But you're wrong about who's afraid." He leaned forward, locking eyes with Musk. "You think I'm the one scared of the future. But let me ask you something. Why do you always sound like someone afraid of the present?" The line hit like a hammer. Musk blinked, visibly thrown. The audience gasped, not because Clint had raised his voice, but because he had struck exactly where it mattered. And he didn't give Musk time to respond. He pressed forward, firm but unhurried. "You talk like the future's this runaway train. Like humanity has no control. Like we're just passengers. But the truth is, we choose the direction. AI isn't destiny. It's a tool. And the real question isn't what AI can do. It's who decides what it should do." A murmur of agreement swept the room. Musk shifted, tapping his fingers against the chair, trying to reassert himself. "All right," Musk said, his voice tighter now. "You say humans are in control. Fine. But what happens when those in control decide they don't? Need the rest of us anymore? When companies choose AI over actors, over musicians, over engineers?" He motioned toward Clint, clearly challenging him to address the hard reality. Clint nodded, almost as if he had been expecting that exact question. "That's exactly why I'm involved," he answered simply. "Because we're at a crossroads. We can build AI that replaces people, or AI that empowers them. And I know which one I'm building." Musk let out a dry laugh, trying to recover ground. "And you think you're going to stop it from taking jobs?" he asked, voice full of disbelief. "You think you can hold back that tide?" Clint didn't miss a beat. "No," he said. "I think we can decide which jobs it should take." The crowd erupted in applause. Musk didn't expect that response. He had expected resistance. He hadn't planned for acceptance, with boundaries, and certainly not for Clint Eastwood, of all people, to be the one delivering it. Clint leaned in slightly. "The real danger isn't AI itself," he said. "It's letting people like you, people who only see efficiency, decide what it should be used for. Because the future shouldn't be designed by one man's vision." The tension in the room climbed. Musk inhaled, trying to push back. "So what now?" he asked, a mocking tone creeping back in. "Are you going to start your own AI company?" "What? Call it Dirty Harry Intelligence?" Clint didn't blink. "I don't need to," he said flatly. "I already have." A wave of shock swept the auditorium. Phones lit up. The chat exploded. Musk's smirk faltered. Clint smiled, just slightly. "You're building AI to replace people," he said. "I'm building it to support them." Musk's face tightened. He looked stunned. He looked cornered. For the first time all night, Elon Musk, the man who always had the final word, had nothing to say. The audience buzzed with rising excitement. Clint Eastwood had just dropped a revelation that turned the entire debate on its head. Not only was he not resisting the future, he was actively shaping it. And not just in theory, but in practice. Elon Musk, who moments ago was dismissive and dominant, now sat visibly thrown, his expression more calculating than confident. He leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing as he searched for an angle to regain control. "That's impossible," Musk said finally, his voice lower, as if trying to convince himself more than the crowd. "If that were true, I'd have heard about it." Clint shrugged with the ease of someone who didn't need validation. "Maybe you were too busy trying to replace the world," he said, "to notice the ones working to preserve it." The crowd erupted again. Musk didn't speak. He sat still, his jaw set, his fingers pressing against the chair as though trying to anchor himself. Across from him, Clint remained the picture of calm authority. Then Clint turned to the audience. "You've heard what Elon thinks," he said, voice steady even. "Now I want to hear from you." The crowd leaned forward. "If you believe the future should belong to creators, not corporations. If you believe AI should help people, not replace them, then drop a 10 in the comments right now." Phones lit up like wildfire. The chat stream burst into motion. Musk didn't move. At that moment, it was clear. The debate wasn't his anymore. It belonged to Clint. The room had shifted, the momentum had changed, and Musk could feel it slipping away. The cameras captured his blank expression, the twitch of his fingers, the slight tremble of his jaw. He had been outplayed. Still, Musk wasn't ready to fold. Not yet. After all, his strength wasn't just argument. It was dominance. So, he leaned back, laced his fingers, and took aim again. "That's a sweet story, Clint," he said, condescendingly. But people love underdog stories. They like thinking that one man can stand against a machine, that creativity will somehow win against technology. He exhaled sharply. "It's romantic, but it's also delusional." The audience quieted slightly. Musk leaned forward, pressing his advantage. "History doesn't favor nostalgia," he said. "It favors efficiency. It favors those who adapt. You think people will keep choosing real movies over AI ones?" He scoffed. "They won't. They'll adapt, just like they adapted to streaming, just like they adapted to electric cars. People don't hold on forever. They move on." Clint listened without blinking. The room was tense now. Musk could feel the crack in Clint's armor. He wanted to widen it. "Let me ask you something, Clint," Musk continued, voice smooth. "You've made a career playing heroes, men who fight impossible odds. But this isn't a film. It's real life. And in real life," he leaned in, "the machine always wins." Silence fell over the room. The weight of his words pressed down like a challenge. All eyes turned to Clint. The camera zoomed in. And then Clint smiled, a slow, assured, unshaken smile. "You know, Elon," he said, voice calm, "I think you just made my point." Musk blinked, confused. "What?" Clint sat forward now, mimicking Musk's posture, but not his tension. "You talk about how the machine always wins," he said, gesturing slightly. "But tell me something. Who's sitting across from me right now?" Musk's brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" Clint's smile deepened. "If AI is so far ahead, if it's truly superior, then why am I not debating a machine?" A gasp rippled through the crowd. Musk sat still. Clint pressed on. "You had the resources to build the most intelligent chatbot, a neural network that could respond to every argument, counter every point. But you didn't." He leaned in, just slightly. "You chose to show up in person, a human, in real time. Because even deep down, people don't connect with machines. They connect with each other. The room exploded. Musk's face tightened. His smirk vanished. Clint didn't need to say another word. He had just turned Musk's own logic back on him and done it with the same quiet dominance he'd shown from the beginning. The cheers hadn't yet died down, but Elon Musk was already searching for his next move. He had spent his entire career building a reputation on control, of ideas, of narrative, of the room. And now, for the first time in front of millions, he was losing all three. Still, he tried to reframe the conversation, sitting back with a forced chuckle. "All right," he said, voice measured but sharp. "You made your point, Clint. But let's not kid ourselves. You're not a visionary. You're a movie star," the crowd murmured, sensing the tension tightening again. Musk gestured to them, then pointed at Clint. "So tell me, what gives you the right to talk about AI? About technology? What makes you qualified to go up against people like me?" The question was clearly intended to discredit Clint, to draw a clear line between technical expertise and public influence. But Clint didn't flinch. He took a breath, looked Musk squarely in the eye, and said evenly, "Elon, I don't need to be an engineer to understand the future." He leaned forward, not with force, but with clarity. "I just need to be human." The audience erupted. The camera zoomed in on Musk's expression as the line landed like a punch. His smirk vanished, and for the first time all night, he looked like someone who had been bested in a fight he didn't expect to lose. The room was electric. Social media feeds exploded. Clips from the debate were already circulating, and the verdict was overwhelming. Clint had humbled Elon Musk, not through tech jargon or flashy data, but with timeless, grounded truth. Musk sat quietly, jaw clenched. His fingers twitched slightly as he tried to keep up the illusion of composure. But the silence around him spoke louder than anything he could have said. Clint had spoken to something deeper than innovation or productivity. He had tapped into meaning, and the people felt it. Still, Musk wasn't ready to walk away. He took a long breath and smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. He leaned back in his chair, adopting a tone that was casual, even a little amused. "That was a nice speech, Clint," he said. "Really, got the people fired up. But let's talk about reality. People don't just connect with each other, they connect with what makes their lives easier. And that's where AI wins." The audience quieted, the energy shifting slightly. Musk saw his opening. "You can talk about art, about soul, about meaning," he continued. "But you know what else is human? Convenience, efficiency, progress." He paused, letting his words linger. "And in the end, people always choose what's easier. That's not an AI flaw. That's human nature." A murmur rolled through the room. Musk leaned forward now, his voice more focused. "Sure, tonight people feel something. They're moved by your words. But what about tomorrow? When they go home and scroll past an AI-generated film that looks just as good and loads in seconds? What then?" The room stilled, tension mounting. "You think they'll still care about meaning?" Musk pressed. "When they don't even notice the difference?" The silence that followed was not the victorious one Musk expected, but a heavy pause filled with discomfort. Because for a moment, some people were wondering if he was right. Musk saw it in the crowd, the flicker of doubt, the glance exchanged between a few uncertain faces. And he latched onto it, like a man who had just found the crack in the armor. "People don't resist change forever," Musk said quietly. "They adapt, they evolve, they move on." He paused, then added with a sharp finality, "Even from you, the words hit hard. They weren't loud, they didn't need to be." The room stayed silent. For the first time in the debate, Musk had struck at something truly uncomfortable. The idea that people, when convenience becomes normal, might simply forget. And Clint Eastwood, the symbol of authenticity, might one day be left behind. The silence lingered. Elon Musk's final line had landed like a cold gust, calculated and unforgiving. He didn't need applause this time. What he wanted was something deeper, doubt. And for a moment, he got it. The audience sat still, processing the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he was right. But then Clint Eastwood laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not one of dismissal, but something full-bodied, real, and disarming. It cut through the tension like a warm wind. Musk's smirk faltered. "Something funny?" he asked. Clint wiped a hand, across his mouth, still smiling. "Yeah," he said, "because you just made the same mistake every unstoppable man in history makes." Musk's frown deepened. "And what's that?" Clint leaned in, calm and steady. "You think you're the future." The crowd stirred. Musk sat back, trying to maintain control, but Clint pressed forward. "You think people will forget me?" he said. "Elon, people don't remember history because of machines. They remember it because of the people who stood up to them." The applause was instant and thunderous. Musk's hands curled against the table. His cool demeanor was slipping. Clint didn't stop. "The people who changed history," he continued, "weren't the ones building the machines. They were the ones who refused to be controlled by them." He gestured toward the audience. "You want to know why people won't forget me?" Then he answered himself, voice full of quiet strength. "Because people don't forget the ones who remind them. They have a choice." The crowd rose to its feet. Applause thundered. Musk sat motionless, his jaw locked, eyes focused but unfocused all at once. He had been outplayed, and not just in a debate, but in a moment that would be clipped, replayed, and studied for years. Clint turned to the audience, letting the moment stretch, then asked, his voice strong. "So let me ask you, do you want a future built by people who tell you that you don't have a choice?" A wave of voices roared back. "No!" Clint nodded slowly. "Or do you want to be the ones who decide what's next?" The crowd lost it. Cheers shook the room. Musk didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The answer was written on every face, every raised phone, every reaction in the live chat exploding in real time. And just like that, the shift was permanent. This wasn't a debate anymore. It had become a movement. Musk sat still, no longer the challenger, no longer the visionary. At that moment, he was simply a man watching the crowd follow someone else. Clint turned back to the audience, his posture calm, his voice steady. "This isn't just about AI," he said. "It's about who gets to decide the future." He gestured toward Musk. "There are powerful people out there who want you to believe you don't have a choice. That progress will happen, with or without you." He shook his head. "But that's not true." The crowd exploded again. Clint leaned forward, voice lowering just enough to draw them all in. "The truth is, the future isn't built by machines. It's built by the people who refuse to be left behind." A hush fell over the room, not from silence, but from focus. Every word landed, every eye stayed locked. "This isn't just my fight," Clint said. "It's ours. It's about making sure that the future belongs to us, not a handful of billionaires deciding for everyone else." He took a breath, then added with finality, "AI doesn't have power. We do." The applause roared back, louder than ever. Musk sat unmoving, unreadable, his face a mask. He had lost. Not just the debate, but the crowd, the moment, the future of the conversation. Clint turned again to the audience, raising a hand to settle the storm of cheers. "Now I want to ask you something," he said, voice rising once more. "If you believe in the power of human creativity, If you believe that the future should be decided by people, not machines, then let the world hear you right now. He paused for effect, then raised his voice, strong and resonant. Drop a yes in the comments right now. Let them know we're still here. The live stream chat exploded. Phones lit up. Yes flooded every screen. Clint smiled, not a performer's grin, but the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to say anything more, because in that moment, Elon Musk was no longer the future. Clint Eastwood was. The auditorium pulsed with energy. Phones flashed, the chat feed ran wild, and the audience was on its feet. Clint Eastwood wasn't just speaking anymore. He was leading. Elon Musk, by contrast, sat silent, hands clasped, his face unreadable. But the signs were there, the tight line of his mouth, the twitch in his jaw, the deep breath he took that didn't quite steady him. He had been outmaneuvered, not by an engineer or an AI specialist, but by a man who understood something even more powerful: people. Still, Musk wasn't one to walk away from a stage without a final move. He exhaled slowly, forced a smirk, and leaned forward, his voice measured but carrying an edge. "All right, Clint," he said, "you've inspired them. Good for you. But let's get real. People love meaning, sure, but they love what's easy even more. And that's what AI gives them: efficiency, convenience, endless entertainment, faster and cheaper." The room quieted slightly. Musk saw it, the subtle shift in posture, the uncertainty flickering in a few eyes. He leaned into it. "You say AI can't replace connection. But look around. AI content is already pulling millions of views. Studios are investing in fully AI-driven films. Not because they want to, but because people are watching them. You can talk about feeling something real all you want, but numbers don't lie." A few audience members nodded. Clint remained perfectly still. Musk pressed harder. "You think Gen Z, raised on TikTok and short-form content, really cares about meaning? They want fast. They want new. They want optimized. And that's what AI does best." The silence that followed wasn't agreement. It was discomfort. Musk had touched a nerve. Then Clint exhaled through his nose, chuckled quietly, and shook his head. "You know, Elon," he said, "I remember a time when people said movies would kill books, when they said television would kill movies, streaming would kill theaters, ebooks would kill print." He looked out across the crowd. "But we're still reading, still watching, still going. Do you know why?" Musk rolled his eyes slightly. "Because old people are nostalgic," he muttered. Clint's smile sharpened. "No," he said, his voice dropping just enough to draw the audience in again. "Because technology doesn't erase meaning. It just makes us fight harder to protect it." The room erupted. Musk's smirk disappeared. Clint stood now, slowly, with quiet control, addressing the audience directly. "So go ahead," he said, gesturing toward Musk. "Flood the internet with AI-generated movies, auto-created songs, algorithm-approved stories. But do you know what's going to happen?" The crowd leaned in. "People are going to get tired of it," Clint said. "They're going to crave something they can't predict. Something human." A wave of understanding passed through the room. Musk sat back, watching, his jaw tight. Clint stepped forward slightly. "You can distract them for a while. You can overload their feeds, flood their playlists. But in the end, people will always return to what makes them feel something. Something they didn't expect. Something real." Musk tried to pivot. "So what's your big plan?" he asked, almost defensive now. "Make movies by hand again? Convince studios to lose money on principle?" He narrowed his eyes. "Or are you just going to sit there and hope everyone suddenly becomes a poet?" Clint didn't blink. "My plan he repeated. Then, with calm finality, I already started. The audience gasped. Musk froze. I already started, Clint said again, steady and composed. While you were building AI to replace people, I was building AI to give them back their power. While you were creating machines to generate content, I was creating tools to protect creativity. The weight of his words dropped like a stone. Musk's expression shifted. This wasn't theory anymore. It was real. Clint Eastwood wasn't bluffing, and the crowd could feel it. He turned to the audience, voice unwavering. Musicians, writers, actors, artists, all the people your AI threatens to erase, I've been giving them the tools to fight back. Applause roared again. Musk sat rigid. His debate was over, but this wasn't just about AI anymore. This had become a declaration. Clint wasn't just defending creativity, he was leading the counterattack. The applause rolled through the auditorium like thunder. Elon Musk sat still, stiff in his seat, his face unreadable, but his posture told the truth. He had been hit harder than expected, not by code or calculations, but by conviction. Clint Eastwood wasn't just challenging him. He was dismantling the very foundation Musk had built his argument on, and rebuilding it into something that belonged to the crowd, to the creators, to people. Clint looked out across the sea of faces, then back at Musk. "You've heard what he thinks," he said, his voice projecting clearly. "Now I want to hear from you." The audience leaned in. If you believe the future should belong to creators, not corporations, if you believe AI should be used to help people, not replace them, then drop a 10 in the comments right now. Phones across the auditorium lit up like a constellation. The live stream chat exploded. Tens flew across the screen faster than the platform could register. Clint sat back in his chair, not gloating, not triumphant, just solid, grounded, while Musk, across from him, sat silent, because in that moment it wasn't his future anymore. It was Clint's. The atmosphere in the room buzzed with a new energy. This wasn't a debate, it had become a reckoning. And Clint Eastwood had done something no one expected. He had taken Elon Musk, the most future-forward, calculated, untouchable man in tech, and forced him into a corner he couldn't compute his way out of. Musk's lips were tight, fingers twitching against the chair's armrest. The cameras caught every twitch, every breath, every silence. The chat was on fire. Clint Ounds, the future was trending before the stream even ended. Musk needed to act fast, needed to regain some kind of control. He took a breath, chuckled dryly, and leaned forward with a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "That's a nice story, Clint," he said, voice low, deliberately dismissive. "But let's talk about history. People love the idea that one man can stand against a machine. It makes for great fiction. But that's all it is, fiction." His smile thinned. The truth is, history favors the efficient, the scalable, the inevitable. And you? You're just a man clinging to the past. The audience tensed. Musk pressed forward, sensing the shift. People didn't choose streaming because they cared about the soul of movies. They chose it because it was easier, faster, and they'll do the same with AI. You say you're defending art, but the market, it's moving on. With or without you, the room was heavy now, uncertain. For the first time, Musk's words struck at something the audience didn't want to face. The fear that maybe they didn't care enough. Maybe convenience would win after all. He delivered one final blow. "Let me ask you something, Clint," he said, voice cool. "You've played heroes your whole life, but this isn't a movie. In the real world, the machine always wins." The silence was thick. The camera zoomed in on Clint, waiting for a response. Then Clint smiled. Not with bravado, not with sarcasm, just the slow, certain smile of someone who knows exactly what's coming next. "You know, Elon," Clint said, "you just proved my point." Musk frowned slightly. "How's that?" Clint leaned forward, his expression calm. "You talk about the machine always winning. But look at us. Right here. Right now." He motioned between them. "If AI is so inevitable, so superior, then why am I debating you and not a machine?" A ripple of gasps moved through the crowd. Musk stiffened. Clint didn't stop. "You have all the resources in the world," he continued, "and you didn't send an AI to speak for you. You didn't let an algorithm argue on your behalf. You showed up in person. Because even you know something that deep down we all feel. People don't connect with machines. They connect with people." The room detonated in applause. Musk didn't move, couldn't speak. He'd just been undone. Not with science, but with truth. Clint had taken his own argument and flipped it on its head, making it clear to everyone, watching. The man who built the future still needed the past to speak for it. The crowd was still roaring. Elon Musk sat frozen, the applause crashing around him like waves against a cliff. For the first time, he looked smaller, not physically, but symbolically. The man who built rockets, revolutionized cars, and redefined industries now sat across from Clint Eastwood, defeated by something far older than code: human connection. Still, Musk wasn't one to retreat quietly. He took a breath, his fingers steepled, and leaned forward. "All right," he said, his voice light but tinged with frustration. "You made your point, Clint. People connect with humans. Great. But let's not pretend you're some kind of visionary." He turned to the crowd, seeking reinforcement. "At the end of the day, Clint Eastwood isn't a scientist. He's not an engineer. He's an actor." The energy in the room dipped just slightly. Musk spotted it, pressed in. "So tell me, Clint," he said, arms outstretched. "What gives you the right to talk about AI, about technology, about the future? What makes you qualified to go against me?" The question hung there, a final attempt to disqualify his opponent, to undercut the message by attacking the messenger. Clint didn't react at first. Then he exhaled slowly, locked eyes with Musk, and delivered a line so quiet and certain it hit harder than any rebuttal all night. "Elon," he said, "I don't need to be an engineer to understand the future." He leaned in just slightly, calm as ever. "I just need to be human." The audience rose again. The applause was deafening. Musk's smirk dissolved. He looked like a man realizing, far too late, that he'd lost not just the debate, but the audience. The internet was in chaos. Clips of Clint's answer were already viral. The debate was no longer about qualifications. It was about values. And Clint Eastwood had made his case not with credentials, but with conviction. The cheers hadn't even died down before the chat was overrun. Clint won. Clint gets it. We choose people, not machines. Musk sat there, face unreadable but jaw tight, eyes flickering just slightly, as he absorbed what had happened. He had built his entire brand around being the smartest person in the room. Tonight, that room had chosen someone else. And Clint wasn't finished. He stood slowly, turned to face the audience once more, and raised a hand. The noise settled, but the energy remained electric. "This isn't just about AI," he said. "This is about something bigger. It's about who gets to choose what comes next." He gestured toward Musk. "There are people out there, powerful people, who want you to believe that the future is already written, that it's inevitable, that it'll happen with or without you." He paused. "But that's a lie." The crowd erupted again, spontaneous, overwhelming, unified. Clint let it rise, then brought it down with just his voice. The future isn't built by algorithms, he said. It's built by the people who refuse to be left behind. A hush fell, not from doubt, but from attention. Every face in the room, every viewer online was locked in. This isn't just my fight, Clint said. It's our fight. To make sure the future doesn't belong to the few, but to all of us. He took a breath. Because at the end of the day, AI doesn't have power. A pause. We do. The crowd exploded. Musk sat still, silent, completely out of responses. The camera caught it all. His clenched jaw, his flexing fingers, his gaze fixed on nothing. He knew it. Everyone knew it. Clint had won. The roar from the crowd hadn't slowed. It was rising, wave after wave, carrying Clint Eastwood's final line like a battle cry. We do. 3 simple words, and yet they had fractured the momentum Elon Musk had spent his entire career mastering. Musk sat motionless, every inch of his posture strained to maintain control. But the audience could see it. He wasn't driving this conversation anymore. He was hanging on. Clint raised his hand once again, and the noise settled, but the energy didn't fade. He scanned the audience, steady and focused. Now, he said, I want to ask all of you something important. He paused, letting the weight build. If you believe in the power of human creativity, if you believe the future should be decided by people, not machines, then let the world hear you. He raised his voice, firm and clear. Drop a yes in the comments right now. Let them know. We're still here. The live chat exploded. Yes! Scrolled by the thousands, then by the millions. Phones across the auditorium lit up like a digital constellation. People were standing, clapping, cheering, but also typing, sharing, spreading the moment. Clint smiled, not performatively, but with quiet satisfaction. He wasn't just speaking anymore. He was leading. This isn't the end, he said, voice rising again. This is just the beginning. If you're ready to fight for a future, where creativity still matters, where people still matter. He pointed directly at the camera, then hit that subscribe button right now. The reaction was instant. The stream numbers jumped, subscriptions ticked upward in real time, trending hashtags flooded every platform. Meanwhile, Elon Musk still hadn't said a word. He sat in silence, watching it unfold, the story, the conversation, the future, slipping. From his grip, the screen behind them faded to black, and then, in bold white letters, a final message appeared. The future belongs to those who choose it. Subscribe now. The auditorium stayed loud, alive with applause, but something deeper had happened. A shift, a turn. Elon Musk, the man once seen as untouchable, had just been outmaneuvered by someone no one expected to challenge him. And not with data, but with something more enduring. Human conviction. He sat there, his usual smirk nowhere in sight, his eyes darting slightly as if trying to recalculate. But the numbers didn't matter anymore. Not here. Not now. Because Clint Eastwood had done something that numbers couldn't predict. He had changed the conversation. The screen behind them still glowed with the words, "The future belongs to those who choose it." The crowd hadn't stopped cheering. The energy in the room was electric, and the live stream was breaking records. Clint Eastwood stood steady, unshaken, the embodiment of quiet authority. Across from him, Elon Musk remained seated, his face blank, but his body language said it all. His fingers curled tightly on the table, his shoulders drawn in. He had lost more than a debate. He had lost control of the narrative. The audience sensed it. The internet knew it. Musk, for all his confidence and calculation, had been overtaken by something he couldn't outmaneuver. Humanity. Clint hadn't just won. He had redefined the fight, and Musk was still processing it. The applause swelled once more, but Clint didn't move to speak again. He didn't need to. Everything that needed saying had been said. The audience had made their choice. Musk sat still, eyes darting, searching for something to salvage the moment. But there was nothing left to grab hold of. He finally leaned forward, taking a slow breath, and forced a smirk that never touched his eyes. "That was a nice performance," he said, his tone trying to sound amused, but landing flat. "You got them all worked up. But here's the truth." His voice dropped a notch. "People may feel inspired right now, but eventually they'll go back to what's easy, to what's fast, to what works. AI isn't going away. And in 100 years, no one's going to remember this." He gestured dismissively toward Clint. "They won't remember this debate. Or you." A hush swept through the crowd, not because they agreed, but because of how low the comment landed. Musk wasn't debating anymore. He was trying to erase his opponent. But Clint didn't rise to the bait. Instead, he chuckled softly, a genuine, quiet laugh, and shook his head. "You know what's funny, Elon?" he said. "You just made the same mistake every so-called unstoppable man in history makes." Musk frowned. "And what's that?" "You think you are the future." The audience leaned in. Clint's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. His words were steady and sharp. "But you're just the past. A past that forgot what people actually remember." He took a step forward, calm and measured. "People don't remember history because of machines. They remember it because of the people who stood up to them." The crowd erupted. Musk looked visibly shaken, his fingers tightening around the table edge. Clint continued, his voice steady as ever. "The ones who changed the world weren't the ones building the machine. They were the ones who refused to be controlled by it." He turned to the crowd, raising a hand. "You want to know why people won't forget me?" He let the pause stretch just long enough. "Because people don't forget the ones who remind them they have a choice." The audience exploded, on their feet, cheering, chanting. Musk sat back, his posture stiff, his face pale. He didn't even try to respond. He couldn't. Because the moment had already passed. Clint had owned it, and everyone knew it. As the cheers rolled on, Clint turned once more to the audience, sweeping his gaze across the crowd like a closing curtain call. "So let me ask you," he said, voice firm, final. "Do you want a future built by people who say you don't have a choice?" A thunderous "No!" rolled through the auditorium. Clint nodded, then asked, "Or do you want to be the ones who decide what comes next?" The roar was deafening. People were standing on chairs, phones in the air, tears in some eyes. Elon Musk sat still, lost in the storm. Because at that moment, the debate wasn't about AI, power, or progress. It was about freedom. Clint Eastwood had taken on one of the most powerful voices in tech and walked away, not just victorious, but unforgettable. He hadn't just won the argument. He had claimed the future. Clint raised his voice one last time, steady and full of certainty. "If you believe in a future where creativity matters, where people still matter, then do it now." He pointed directly at the camera. "Hit that subscribe button." The crowd erupted. Phones flew into the air as people subscribed in real time. The numbers on the live feed surged. Musk remained silent, unmoving. Because at that moment, he wasn't the face of the future anymore. Clint Eastwood was. The screen faded to black. And in bold white letters, a final message appeared. "The future belongs to those who choose it. Subscribe now."